I think it's safe to say that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is a divisive game. Like its predecessors before it, much has been said, good and bad. People had their expectations based on prior experience and brought it into this one. The public verdict is out, and, well, here we can take all that and throw it straight in the garbage. This is my personal opinion of the game, and I won't march in lockstep with other channels and other viewpoints. Yeah, that's just not me. Now, don't take this as some megalomaniacal narcissism. When it comes to things like this, I try to approach it with a neutral lens. I even avoided playing other Pokemon games so that I can critique this one on its own merits. I wanted to carve my own path through this fun yet messy game. One might say, I want to make my own destiny. This game is like a human. It's messy, imperfect, and it often does stupid things. But through those jagged edges, you can see the potential. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, we saw a glimpse of what the franchise could be. Vast open worlds where you can walk alongside wild Pokemon with all new ways to catch them. But that game only showed potential. I feel, to a degree, this game realizes that potential. Instead of the worlds being separated, everything in the Paldea region is connected. The only limiting factor, as it is in most other Pokemon games, is having the right HM to traverse rough terrain or cross big bodies of water. But here, we don't have HMs no more. Those moves are all allocated to the legendary that you get at the beginning of the game. Yes, you get the legendary to start the game, but it's injured somehow, and you can't use him in battle until you finish the Path of Legends subplot, which more or less is the end of the game. Until then, you can only really use it to move around the world faster. But even with these light restrictions, you can legitimately wander around for hours just battling trainers and catching wild mons. On my playthrough, I wandered all the way to Alfornada, which is where the Psychic Gym leader is. Now, that's at least a level 40 gym, and my team was only level 20. Needless to say, I kinda got my ass handed to me by the gym trainer. But you can sequence break if you so desire. There's no artificial barriers keeping you from doing so. And the game is always reminding you that this is your story, and you can approach it any which way you desire. In the game, they call it the treasure hunt because they want you to find your treasure. Now, with no restrictions and wide open spaces, it must be hard to run into wild Pokemon on accident, right? Wrong! I cannot count how many times I ran into a stupid bug Pokemon hiding in a tuft of grass or this damned float. Just walking into a wild mon triggers a fight, so you'll have to fight in a battle you never wanted in the first place. Adding that to the fact, if the wild Pokemon is a higher level than you, it's way more difficult to escape from that fight. Therein, forcing you to have to battle your way out. It makes things all the more frustrating. In fact, let's talk about the new way to trigger fights. Traditionally, you just wander around in tall grass until RNG triggers an encounter. But with the Mons out in the wild for all to see, things had to change. Now I think Legends Arceus did this right, where you just toss one of your starters at them to trigger a fight. That's putting it simply, but it worked nicely, so you need not worry about wild Pokemon accidentally triggering a fight when you didn't want it. In the game, the Pokemon were notoriously aggressive. I'd argue that in here, they are even more aggressive. You see, when you're in a fight, wild Pokemon will camp near you. Then, after that battle has concluded, they will jump you. So it's stupidly easy for them to hoard around you, like these Tauros did. This trapping can be avoided if you see it coming, but that means you have to plot your way out during the battle. So you constantly have to check your 6 for wild Pokemons during an encounter. This feels like a developer oversight, as they could have simply granted you some invincibility frames after the fight. But in reality, it's just a nuisance, as it never really put me in a precarious spot. But new players could certainly get overwhelmed. I could see that happening. All of this was designed around the fact that they want you catching wild Pokemon the old-fashioned way, quote unquote. Meaning, initiating a fight and then catching the wild Pokemon within the battle. But I can't help but ask, why? The system in Legends Arceus, as radical as it was, made the gameplay more interesting and fast-paced than its predecessors. This feels like a step back from that. Perhaps it's to make the battles feel more methodical as they were in the past, but they've even implemented a new style of combat that doesn't even require you to fight per se. What you do is, you can send your lead Pokemon out, and by pressing the right trigger button, it'll find the nearest wild Pokemon and engage while you go out and pick berries. These battles are super quick and are really decided by the strength and type advantages of the Mons engaged. It's super nice if you're short on time, or if you're me watching your starter massacre a horde of wild Mons. And there's even a minigame attached to this. In the Team Star subplot, you have to defeat 30 enemy Pokemon in 10 minutes using only your first 3 starters. This does speed things up significantly, and gives you an alternate way to get EXP on the fly. And did I also mention the Terra Orb? When used, any moves that match your Terra type become much stronger. It can also change your type as well, although most Pokemon's main type is their Terra type. But you can actually get it changed. You just need to find Terra Shards, and they're kind of rare, but you can do it. So if you're at a disadvantage, the Terra Orb can really get you out of a pickle. But the opposite is true as well, so you gotta keep that in mind. And that's really all the changes to the battle system that I can think of. Now, something Scarlet and Violet does tremendously well is the story. At a glance, it's kind of a copy-paste Pokemon story with, your traditional go to the gyms, beat the Elite Four, become the champion, while also dealing with some legendary and some team whatever trying to collect said legendary to take over the world, blah blah blah, you get it. This one dares to go deeper with its plot and characters. Now, the characters in particular are a huge improvement. Pokemon games have always been known for their witty dialogue, but here it genuinely feels like they made an effort to flesh out all of the characters, starting with your friend Nemona. Now, I have Scarlet, so I really don't know who your friend is on Violet. I'm assuming it's Arvin, but let me know if I'm wrong. Anyway, getting back to it, Nemona is charming, bubbly, and oh so encouraging to you throughout the game. It gets to the point, it almost feels flirty. Yet she's genuinely enthusiastic that you want to become a champion. Most friends from previous games, I always felt were kind of just there. Like these two-dimensional cutouts. On a side note, I don't really want to throw any shade at Diamond and Pearl's characters. I just needed a reference. Also, I've only got Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl and not the original DS cartridge. So, anyways, Nemona is not just some 2D cheerleader. She has her own flaws, like the fact that she acts tougher than she really is, especially around the league champion. Not to mention, she can't sit still. Definitely not with those rockets she has for legs. But it's not just the way she moves, but she's always so eager to fight, even when you are not. I mean, Professor Clavel literally had to restrain her on the first Pokemon fight that you have with her. Now, all of these layers add for a more dynamic and more nuanced characters in the game, and I like that. Whenever she walked into a gym, I felt genuinely happy to see her, not just because she's talented elsewhere. She's brimming with charm and unrelenting support. She's just peppy and adorable, and I love you. It's not just Nemona who's got character by the truckloads, though. All of the gym leaders have these exuberant personalities. Now, personally, my favorite was the normal gym leader, whose name is Larry. It's such a twist how he's revealed, and I just love it. Also, in a turn of events, the professor has a defining personality, and even a character arc. Throughout the Starfall Street campaign, which is the Team Star storyline, you're recruited by an unknown entity to take down Team Star, who in this title are a bunch of ruffian students who bully other students. You eventually get help from Clive, who's definitely not Professor Clavel, not a chance. Throughout the storyline, you find that Team Star was initially formed to stop the bullying and harassment that was plaguing the school. But something happened, and they became these thugs. And as the story goes on, Clavel realizes how dense he's been to the issue within the walls of his own school. Now, I'm not going to spoil the ending, so I'll just leave it at that. It's pretty interesting, and the twist villain at the end is pretty surprising. Then there's the emotional gut punch that's the Path of Legends subplot. Oh my god, on that one, you're on the hunt for something called Herba Mystica to help repower the legendary that you found in the beginning of the game. Now that I think about it, Herba Mystica, HM, I see what you did there. But that's even got a really sad story attached to it that I want you to experience for yourselves. As if it wasn't enough, your freaking legendary has a character arc. Beginning by having lost its legendary powers, you track down this mysterious Herba Mystica. By doing this, and delving into the great crater of Paldea from whence he came, he regains his power. I love what they've done here with the story. Everything in this is bubbling with personality and gives you more investment to these people, or Pokemon. It truly feels like they put a lot of time and effort into the story, and it really deepens the engagement, even though other aspects ripped you right back out. Okay, I know I've been dodging this, but it's time. Time to talk about the performance issues. This game feels like it's being held together with toothpicks and chewing gum. I know I praised the visuals for being an upgrade from Legends Arceus, and I still stand by that, by the way. But my god, everything else feels horribly broken. I mentioned in my first impression video that if you enter a densely populated area, the performance suffers greatly. Prepare for 5 frames per second walkers everywhere you look. Even in the wild, the problems persist, albeit less noticeable. For instance, I was running along this cliffside and just out of nowhere started a battle. I was nowhere near this Pokemon. Everything feels horribly unpolished to the point I'm scared that overloading the engine would nuke the game entirely. Luckily, nothing you normally would do will crash the game, but it does come dangerously close. Like when you do the gym challenge at the grass gym, you have to hunt for these Sunflora Pokemon and bring them back to this pen. If you haven't noticed, having this much entities follows you severely cuts down on the frame rate. But these things are everywhere in the game, whether it be weird glitchy shadows, entities popping in and out of existence, or something as minute as just the stiff way these characters move. All of it screams a lack of polish, and it can all be traced back to one simple thing: the game was rushed. And it's really a terrible shame. I really do love all the additions, particularly with the story. Would I have enjoyed it more if it had come out as polished to an absurd degree as Mario titles are? Yes, but I'm not going to let the performance problems affect my opinions about the things I liked. I genuinely like the changes they made, and I feel it more imperative that we let the Pokemon Company and Game Freak know that we liked these changes. Not saying they shouldn't be held accountable for rushing this through the door. They absolutely should. But I know how companies are. If product underperforms, it does not matter if some people like the changes. They'll think that it was the changes that caused the product to underperform. They never look at the nuance. They only care about numbers. That's how they are. That's how business works. Then they'll axe the new ideas and go back to how it used to be. And I don't want that for the Pokemon franchise. I really don't want to go back to Sword and Shield, guys. Games like this and Legends Arceus indicate a major redefining of the Pokemon games, and I am all in. I know the performance problems are terrible and should absolutely be fixed, but I feel the positives of this game should be the defining trait of this game, not the negative aspects. Pokemon games used to be an event, like Star Wars used to be. When a new game came out, the world knew about it, and everyone was super excited. When I saw the announcement for this one, I was super pumped for exactly 5 seconds. I promptly forgot about it until I saw the release poster at my local game store. That's what the Pokemon games have become. Like Marvel, we are being constantly drowned in product and content, and it stops being special. Not to mention the enormous stress it brings to those working on these projects. I feel if the Pokemon Company realizes this and gives a little bit more time between projects, we wouldn't be here talking about the massive problems this game has. I guess one can only dream. So yeah, that's my review of Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, everyone. It's a fun yet flawed game, to put it simply. There's a lot of ideas that I've really liked, but there's also a lot of problems. And I really hope that the Pokemon Company and Game Freak sort it out and listen to customer feedback for the next game. Anyway, let me know about your guys' experience with the game. I really want to know. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye now.